Hello, Africa. Hello to the rest of the world. I'm your host, Ramakuela, and welcome to Pumu's Intersection. On this episode, we'll be discussing more about coalition government. So, this word has been, or the words have been thrown around a lot recently, especially after the South African elections. So there started to be talks about South Africa going into a coalition government. So it is very important that we educate each other about that. South Africans must understand what is a coalition government. Why did we get to a point where there's a coalition government? It's not everybody who knows why. Some people just hearing coalition government and they're surprised. Why are these elections different from the others? Now there's this thing called the coalition government. That we've never had before. No, that's not true. We've actually had a coalition government. I think it was after the 1994 elections or something. I'm not too sure about that. I must research that. But South Africa has been a coalition government before. So on Wednesday, the 27th of May 2024, South Africans took to the polls to elect the party that will govern the state of South Africa for the next 5 coming years. South Africa is a democratic state. Therefore, the people are the ones who choose the leader or party which they like or believe that it has the right ideologies that they stand for or believe in. In addition, we have a multi-party system which gives voters a variety of parties to choose from. I believe that this is one of the important essence of our South African democracy. And therefore, I am very proud about that, being a South African. So the results were announced on Sunday, the 1st of June 2024. And that is when things became a bit tricky. The African National Congress Party lost its majority for the very first time since it became into power 30 years ago after ending the apartheid system and moving into a democratic one. So the results were as follows in the 2024 elections. The African National Congress received 40.18% of votes, in percentage. The Democratic Alliance received 21.81% of votes. The MK Party received 14.58% of votes. Economic Freedom Fighters received 9.52% of votes. Inkatha Freedom Party received 3.85% of votes. Pan-African Party received 2.06% of votes or percent. The VF Plus received 1.3% of votes, and Action SA received 1.2%. Then we have about 44 other smaller parties which received less than 1% of votes each. So this is where the talks of a coalition government began. There was no party that won the outright majority the way that ANC has always won throughout the years. So what do we mean when we say an outright majority? Outright majority. An outright majority is more than half of a total. More than half, not half or less than. For example, let's say that in a group of, let's say about 21 people or 21 individuals, the majority would be 11 people or more, not 10 people or less. So 10 people or less would not equal to a majority. So let's go back to the ANC's outright majority results of previous elections since 1994. So the reason why I'm trying to go back to the previous elections, the results of ANC's previous elections, I want to show the difference in percentages so that I can drive home the point of understanding outright majority. So we are still on the concept of outright majority. Politics 101. So In 1994, the ANC received 62.65% of vote. In 1999, it received 66.35% of votes. In 2004, it received 69.69% of votes. In 2009, it received 65.90% of votes. In 2014, it received 62.15% of votes. In 2019, it received 57.50% of votes. And then in 2024, the ANC received 40.18% of votes. This is where they lost the outright majority in South Africa. You know, it is so shocking. Well, we can't say shocking, uh, but it is surprising, but not surprising at the same time, looking at how ANC has been going about, about how South Africans have been expressing their positions in terms of the party, saying that, change the party, we love the party, do better for us, we'll vote for you, to a point where now South Africans have just decided to give other parties a chance to see if they can do better, So I believe that ANC, as a party, as an organization, it can still uh, take back South Africa. I believe that these elections should definitely shake up the party and show that South Africans mean business when it comes to that democracy. They want services to be rendered. They want the issues of corruption to stop. There's a lot of things that are happening. High rates of unemployment. I mean, these are the issues that we've been fighting all along. So, since ANC lost, its outright majority, and there was no party that had the outright majority in parliament, therefore, it is what led to the situation of having a coalition government, right? So, what is a coalition government? According to the South African National Dialogue on Coalition, a coalition government exists when two or more political parties or independent representatives combine their votes in a legislature or council to elect a government and to support the decisions it takes. This becomes necessary when no single party has a majority of seats in the legislature or council. So, like I said, a coalition government takes place when there's no party that has won the outright majority on the national votes. So there's no party that won 51% and above. ANC won majority of the votes, which was the 40%. However, it was not the outright majority. So which means then ANC must collide their powers or their votes rather with another party in order for them to be able to maintain the majority. So obviously when parties go into coalitions, there are always agreements, as to there will be agreements as to okay, as we're giving you this percentage of our power as the ANC, what are you willing maybe to give up and give to our party, those kind of things, So it means this will definitely play out tomorrow in Parliament. So it will be today rather because we'll be launching the episode on the very same day. So, what are the synonyms or similar words for coalition? We try to drive the point home for people to understand coalition. So the similar words are an alliance, an affiliation, union, partnership, bloc, caucus, federation, league, association, confederacy, confederation, consortium, a syndicate, combine, alignment, amalgamation, a merger, a conjunction, or a combination. It's all about parties taking their votes and combining them in order to form one government. So before I get back again into the topic, I mean, I was getting very heated up with the statistic and the knowledge of things. So, um, I mean, the results of the elections. I mean, I voted. I participated in the elections, and obviously, I voted for a certain party. Obviously, your vote is your secret. So the results are mixed for me. So this is me on my personal capacity, not as a analysis in politics, or not giving an analysis on politics, but then personally, um, it's giving me mixed feelings. And I can only hope and pray that whatever the outcome may be tomorrow, as parties meet in the National Assembly for the first time after this kind of situation in South Africa. I mean, we've always have it known that a certain party is winning majority. So this is the first time that we're having something that is different. So we don't know how politicians are going to react towards it. Are they going to be agitated? Are they going to be respectful towards us as South Africans when they get in parliament? Are they going to end up in a brawl and we as South Africans will be left stranded? We can only pray and only hope that. I mean, we have very intelligent politicians. I mean, being in politics is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. We're not talking about say corruption or whatever. I'm just saying that being a politician, I studied politics, I understand politics and how it is. Things are not as black and white as they seem in terms of politics. There are a lot of gray areas that, as South Africans, we may not be aware of. But let's not go too deep into issues of politics. So let's go back to the topic, which is coalition government, right? So the South African government is divided into three spheres of government, right? Or three tiers of government. We have the local government, we have the provincial government, and we have the national government. So the provincial and local government are on the South African government is divided into three spheres or three tiers: the national, provincial, and local government. On the national level, the legislative authority is vested on the National Assembly, which is in parliament, as well as the National Council of Provinces. So our legislative authority in South Africa, the powers lies in the parliament. So the parliament is divided into two houses, which is the National Assembly as well as the National Council of Provinces. South African Parliament, the National Assembly has 400 seats. So for a party to have a majority in the National Assembly, they must have 201 seats or more, not 200 or less than. So from 1994 until 2019, ANC has been the winning, has been winning more than 201 seats in the National Assembly until this year in 2024, where they've now won only 73 seats. I mean, this is shocking. It's unbelievable. I mean, how does a party go from 201 seats and then in the next 5 years they drop down to 73 seats? I mean, as a political party, there's a lot of planning and fixing that needs to take place, because I believe that South Africans are still believe in the party. However, it is important that they do what is best for them as South African citizens. I mean, we've been seeing the issues that have been happening around the party, especially issues of corruption and a lot of unresolved issues that a lot of South Africans have been really losing their patience about. So I believe that South Africans actually made their voices to be heard in these elections, to say that as South Africans, we want change, we want development. Hence the reason why I say that I will still pray and still hope that the results after tomorrow's sitting, the first sitting at the National Assembly, uh, it will be a great step forward for South Africans and a great hope, to see various parties uniting together, only for the sake of South Africans. We always sing, because we're a multi-party system, we always see parties competing a lot more than uniting for the good of the country, for the good of the state. So let's pray as South Africans, and let's appeal also to our politicians to respect us as South Africans. People must not go to the National Assembly just to be fighting, like the way that we're seeing things happening. Let's set a new tone for South Africa. The whole world is watching how we act. So we cannot be acting in that way. We have very educated politicians, and who I believe that can really take this state forward, through coalition. Coalition is a good thing. Actually, let's go back to the topic. I was still giving my own personal thoughts about this, or personal view, you can say. So now let's go back to the facts. So in this year's elections, ANC has won 73 seats only, which is not a majority in the National Assembly. Therefore, a coalition government becomes the business of the day. Why is it necessary to have a coalition government? In the South African context, elections always results in the representation of multiple parties in parliament, provincial legislature, or a municipal council. The executive leadership is always elected by the legislature, and can be removed by the legislature. By executive authority, I'm referring to the president, premiers, and mayors. So let me elaborate more on this point. As I've said before, the legislative authority in the national government is vested on the parliament, right? And the parliament has two houses, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, right? So the National Assembly, which means is those 400 elected party representatives, right? They are the ones who then, after each and every national election, they will have a first sitting that happens after the elections, which is the sitting that will take place tomorrow in the South African Parliament. So in that sitting, it means that as a legislature, they then vote for the president and the premiers and other and mayors as such. So because the ANC has constantly been the one that has been the majority of winners, it meant that ANC always got more seats in parliament. So therefore, a leader is definitely going to come from where? ANC, right? But things are different now because there's no outright majority winner. It means that the legislature must now meet and vote for a leader. That is where coalition comes in, partnerships between parties. ANC must know which party to partner with so that Mr. Ramaphosa can remain as president. If ANC no longer has the majority of seats in parliament, it means it no longer has the majority of power. The only way that it can have power in parliament, it is when it takes its votes and combine them with the votes of another party. Understood, right? Wait. So if the ANC does not form strong coalitions, Cyril Ramaphosa might be out-seated or voted out as the head of state of South Africa. So if the current head of state is voted out, it will result in a lot of changes that may be positive or negative. Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa has a good reputation nationally as well as globally. Him being out-seated will definitely impact our local and global, political environment. So, for example, ANC's position in terms of Palestine's situation or Hamas situation with Israel was not that positively received by the DA. When the ANC launched I mean, the court case with the ICJ, it was not receiving that much support from the DA, because the DA had a different position, right? So it means that if a new party is to come into power and we have a new head of state, it would mean that our position globally, our position, I mean that our the part that we take or the sides that we take in global situations. For example, the Hamas what do you call this? The Hamas Israeli war or Palestine Israeli war, you can say. ANC has made a clear position. So it is possible that because parties have different ideologies, they have different beliefs. Maybe another party can be capitalist, another one can have ideologies of communism or things of that nature. So it would mean that having a new head of state would mean that South Africa's positions globally might change. It can either change in a positive or a negative way. So we do not know how that may go, right? At the same time, coalition government is a very great thing, because it will result into good governance internally, especially, because when there are various parties that are governing together, it allows even for the system of checks and balances to be in order. According to South African Constitution, there shall be a separation of powers between the legislature. I mean, the legislative. I mean, sorry, the legislature. So a coalition government at the same time is a very good form of government. It will probably result into good governance, especially internally. When there are various parties that are governing together, it allows even for the system of checks and balances to be in order. According to the South African Constitution, there shall be a separation of powers between the legislature, executive, and judiciary, with no with a sorry with appropriate checks and balances to ensure accountability, responsiveness, and openness. So when it's various parties that are working together in a coalition government, it means that there's no party that has absolute power of the state or of the government or something like that. There's no party that has the absolute power. Therefore, when it's different parties that are coming together, it means that the system of checks and balances will be conducted easily. Because, I mean, let's give an example. Let's say, okay, the ANC, because it has always been the majority, always has been the absolute holder of power, you can say, in a way, because they always had the majority, right? So it means that if anything were to go wrong or with issues of corruption or something like that, because it's still the ANC that must do the system of checks and balances, how will the system really work? There won't be transparency, because it's like you make your mistake, you must be your own self, you must correct your same mistake. So you might even make favors for yourself while correcting that mistakes. However, if somebody else is marking your paper, it would be a different kind of situations. So definitely for us as South African citizens, this kind of government is a great one, it's a good one. However, when it comes to different parties, like I said before, it's different ideologies. We don't know if people are going to put their parties forward or are they going to put South Africans forward, because some parties may negotiate things which are, I feel like, maybe unreasonable, because of the ANC is in a hard position or it's in an awkward position. But then I'm hoping that politicians will always put forward what South Africans want, or they will put forward South Africans' needs, because I believe that these elections have shown them that South Africans have a voice and democracy is still very much alive. And it's so great to see how the elections went. There might have been glitches in some areas and things like that, but then in most African countries, when they go into elections, it is expected that there's going to be civil wars that arise, especially when a big party loses its majority. So I even commend our leader, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, for the way he received the elections, because his reactions is probably the ones that maintain the peace. We see how it happens in many other African countries where when a party loses, it now results into violence to try to gain back power, and we find people just being in miserable situation. So I'm still saying I'm going to pray, and I still hope that as South Africans we can pray, even globally pray, that after tomorrow's sitting in Parliament, South Africa will move forward positively.